Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. I am Ron Smith, and this is the Dr. Ron Smith Investigate Show, where we separate the real from fake, the fact of fiction, and give you the winner's edge. And sometimes we change your water into wine. My quote of the day is rather than change the world, it might be better if we change ourselves. This is episode 5 of The Talk, and today we will continue our conversation about money. Do you remember the first time you were given some money as a child and you had the option of what you were going to do with it? Nobody told you about saving. Nobody told you about investing. Nobody told you about how you could spend it. Do you remember that time? Well, each of us were born in different households, and I don't know about you, but in my house, we didn't talk about money other than I had a bill to pay or I have to buy this, all the necessary things. Nobody talked to me about the different things that you can do about money and why it's important. Today, we're going to talk about having that difficult conversation, whether it's with your children at home or uh, your significant other, your spouse, or your girlfriend, or how do I introduce this conversation if I'm really serious about someone uh, during the time that I'm dating? If you were like me, and hopefully you wasn't, I didn't talk about this during the time me and my wife were actually, getting serious. So uh, before we get into a medical crisis, before we get into a financial emergency, and God forbid, in case there's death in the family, there's a discussion that we should have about money. One of the things that I know you and I hear about every day that somebody has to go get a GoFundMe because unfortunately, like unlike the people in Mississippi where they lost everything due to a weather situation, we go through situations that are controllable. One of the ways that I think that you could talk to your children is that you could tell them some of the mistakes and some of the mishaps and some of the things that you grew up about money, which, since I had very little discussion about money, that would be a very, very uh, short conversation. Other than the first thing I did with money, do you remember the first thing you did with money? I know the first thing I did with money, I bought some candy, and I probably spent up everything that I had. So we're gonna get into a little more details on how you should uh, spend your money. But swap stories, and let's say that if you are dating, you can, you know, part of the courtship is trying to get to know each other, other than their taste in music, uh, their style of fashion, uh, you know, all those things that that maybe that you will find attracted to the other person just by visually. You want to get to know them a little better. Uh, I think that the lifestyle of their rearing is important. You know, basically, besides what you do for a living and your educational background, we need to ask them, what are their hopes, dreams, and wishes for the future. Now, I know uh, if you're dating, you don't want to be interrogated about and questioned about some of the things, but because it could be embarrassing, and uh, people are apprehensive about 4 different subjects, whether it's religion, politics, sex, and money. But one of those are the 4 things that we have to navigate all through our lives, almost on a daily basis. So, in order to intelligently address those things, we need to be able to talk about those things. And I think that I will be in a better position now to be more articulate than I did, uh, you know, 20, 40 years ago. So, and I can do it in a way that it wouldn't be so intrusive because I would be willing to share, my background, which is uh, uh, not actually being very naive about it. So, in order to actually have that conversation, there is 5 things that you should actually, discuss, and not necessarily in this order. Basically, how do you earn or create your income or wealth, which means basically, your job or your career, your if you have a business, your investments, and those type of things, and things that you share, anyway. And the next thing is basically, you want to talk about is how you manage those things. Not necessarily come out and say, what's let me see your budget. But one of the things you want to be aware of is the cash flow, which, cash flows in and cash flows out. And basically that's your income, and that's how you create your income and expense. And also basically, you want to look at your assets and liabilities. One of the things that I know that we have this protective shield, and that maybe sometimes that discussion might appear that we're happening too soon, but I think it's never too soon once you make that step. Unfortunately, we are very intelligent people, and that we think that we make concrete decisions, but I would say 99% of the decisions that we make are more how we feel and emotions, rather than the looking at a piece of paper with our assets and liabilities, and our assets and expensive, which is kind of cold and dry. We tend to, this is what I feel like I want to do, which leads us, and sometimes leads us into trouble. The best, I guess, framework that I can give you is what I call the 40, 30, 20, 10. The 40 is basically your mortgage or your rent, food, and necessary expenses. That's the 40% of your income should be in that range. The 30% should be your discretionary spending. And I want to talk a little bit about discretionary, because sometimes the discretionary spending can get out of hand. Basically, that's your travel, dining out, and doing fun things like concerts and stuff like that. The 20% is basically what of your income should be used for investments and spending. And the 10% is your charitable donation. In my case, I'm a tither at my church, my place of worship, or donations. Now, that's just a framework of some of the things that I think right off the bat, if I was sharing with a person of how to structure their income, those would be the main thing that basically I would tell them that they need to actually take a closer look at. The next one is leverage. And leverage to me is, as I mentioned, and I'm going to probably repeat some of the things that I have said from the episode 3, 4, and this is the 5th one, because redundancy is normally how we learn things. Leverage is in short form is OPM, using other people's money. And as I mentioned, that basically, unless you can pay cash for a vehicle, basically you get a loan for it. Unless you're going to pay cash for a home, you're going to get a loan. So basically, your 10 or 20% is that you're leveraging the other 80 or 90% to get this large ticket item. And one of the things that I know for sure is that we have to be careful with debt, because debt, to me, prior law enforcement, so I'm going to use this analogy, is like a loaded gun. It could be for your protection, or it could be to your detriment. It all depends on your expertise and your knowledge of how you use it. One of the things I'm going to give you this tidbit is that rich people use debt as to create assets. Poor people use debt to use it as a liability. And as the series continue, I will get more and more in detail with that. In order for you to successfully use leverage or other people's money, or being able to borrow from a financial institution, you're going to have a credit score. As I mentioned last year, credit scores range from 300 to 850. The better the credit score over 600, 650, the easier that you could be able to obtain a loan, or what they call quote unquote good credit, which means that basically is that you'll be able to leverage what you need to do in a more successful way. I give you the illustration, and I mentioned this sometime before, and you might hear it again. Part of my testimony is basically I was a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, and when I went to my first duty station, I saw my peers who I knew I graduated from, officer candidate school. We go into our new duty station. They driving up in Corvettes and Porsche and the two-seaters Mercedes, and I'm driving up in a Nissan Sentra, and it was new, and basically it was the best thing that I can obtain during that time, and I thought there were some other issues, but what I found out is basically since I abused a credit card that I got in college with no job, which should be almost close to a criminal act in itself, but I maxed it out. And one of the things I learned after, two things I learned after. One is that you shouldn't only use 30% of the max of that credit card and pay monthly, and don't let the other expenses roll over and over, because especially now with the interest rates going up from 18 to 24%. And that was one thing I learned over the years. Two is that my peers' parents put them on their credit card as authorized users. Therefore, they had a credit like history starting when they were teenagers. So by the time we graduated from OCS, they had exemplary credit. Therefore, what would cost me from 8 to 14% to get the loan, they were getting loans for 2, 3, 4%. So they were able to use their money, went further than what mine went. So those are things, little tidbits that I learned along the way. So we're going to take a break right now. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about money.
I can tell you my problems, meditating my silence. But I keep pushing my pen, rotating my stylus. Brokenness feeling like sin, now no breath, low dollar. Used to be left on red, now all the girls go holler. Now all the girls go follow. All the fake fans gon' pile up. I need peace to borrow, get that shit right back tomorrow. Somehow all the fans go bravo. Smile so much to hide my sorrows. Faith is shaky in bravado. I can't hold a frown too long. I can't stay down too long. Look, running from pain, running from strain, running from things, running from schemes.
Welcome back, my soul brothers and soul sisters. I want to repeat my quote of the day. Rather than change the world, it may be better if we change ourselves. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about money and how we talk to our significant others, how we talk to our children. And one of the things I didn't mention is that we are, I'm in the age where I am part of that bridge category, where basically I'm still got my eye on my adult children, but also my parents also. And my parents and my wife and I, we take care of, both of them, make sure both of them are good. And sometimes I mean finance. So right now, I want to make sure I do some educating. And what I try to do is do it like we call edutainment, educate and entertain at the same time. So one of the ways to talk to your children, or if you're talking to your parents, that can be a difficult situation too. So how do you actually bring that conversation up? One of the tips that I want to give before I continue with the 5 things that you need to remember, and those 5 things are, how you earn or create your income, how you manage it, how you leverage it, how you protect it, and how do you want to leave a legacy. So we've got 2 more to go, how we protect our income and leave a legacy. But I want to share this with you. One of the things I would say that you cannot assume that your parents have their estate in order. Don't wait too late for a medical or financial crisis to happen. So you start looking for the, let's say, the bank information or the insurance information or their wills, trusts, those type of things. I implore you to start having that conversation with your parents and now you can have the conversation with your children to tell them where the medical information, where the insurance information, all those, the wills and testament, where do you keep those things? Now, I know they say that you're not supposed to tell people your PIN numbers and your, et cetera, et cetera. But if I don't know the combination to your safe, and that's where you keep all your important information, and you are incapacitated to a point where you can't relay that information to you, then I guess I'm gonna have to call a safe cracker. But I suggest that those things are kept in a safety deposit box, quote, quote, could be at your bank, and having one of your siblings or your adult children be able to be on your account. So basically they can get to that information when necessary. So one of the ways to encourage this conversation is to make sure that there is no drama going on. So it's kind of like you setting the scene, like having a date that you have, you have to set the atmosphere to make sure that there is no confrontation in the discussion or anything that can leak in that will be distracting. So if you can kind of create that environment, the more the better. And basically you could tell them hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm sending my my financial information up that in case something happened to me, this is where you need to find the information. Here's some of the point of contacts to get that information. Here's some people that you need to see. Those things are important. Don't wait for a crisis to happen. So let us continue with point 4, which protection. In the state of Virginia, you have to have insurance. I know there are other states that you don't have to have insurance, but insurance is a part of protecting your property and against liability, and health insurance. In order to maintain this gift that God has given us, we have to make sure we make our appointments and we keep our appointments, and basically, get a proper, drink plenty of water, uh, movement, exercise, eat proper food. Those are the things that will maintain and to protect. This is your greatest asset. So you should be able to protect that. Also, insurance. Uh, do not uh, allow something to happen to you in a crisis that your family member have to set up a GoFundMe because you didn't have insurance. Please, it will cost more if you don't do it than if you do it. Okay, legacy. Two things that I have started is that I want to, well, first of all, uh, back a couple of years ago, I was introduced to a 100-year plan. And the 100-year plan is things that I want my children and my grandchildren be able to remember about me and to actually be able to function just as well if I'm not no longer here. Uh, my youngest grandson is 6 years old. So that's 94 years that I want to be able to see whatever I leave will be able to be viable for the next 96 years. Believe it or not, it's not as difficult as it might appear as 96 years because I'm planning on living at least to be 96. So half the time that he's going to be around and be an adult, I'm going to be around. And the whole idea is that, which most financial planners tell you, after you retire, you need to have 25 years worth of income of the quality of life that you desire to have. So whether you have a mansion and you have 3 Jags, you need to have income to support that lifestyle. Now, that's not my lifestyle, but if that's your desire, your income should support you for the next 25 years if that's what this lifestyle that you desire. And you can do that with setting up your will and trust and making sure you have life insurance. And we're going to talk about that a little more, but I want to talk about a couple of money mistakes, because when you share with people, if you tell them your successes, they might be happy for you, but that's you. But if you share with them your mistakes, they will be able to receive your information more easily. Mistake number 1, spending too much discretionary income. Now, I know basically, we have desires to dine out, and I love to dine, and I love to dine well. But you have to make sure that dining out doesn't mess up your plan. Remember, I shared with you the 40, 30, 20, 10. That's just really an outline. So 40% is basically taking care of the necessities, your rent or mortgage, your food, things that are necessary for you to function. The discretionary stuff is, like I said, it could be the dining out. I love going to movies. Me and my wife, that's one of the things that we enjoy doing. I love a good concerts. Those things, I don't go as much as I used to, but I still like jazz, and I still like some R&B. I like some good gospel concerts. And prior to the pandemic, I love to travel. New York City is one of my favorite cities. San Diego is my favorite city of all. Atlanta is where my heart is. That's one the major city that I was connected to. and I still enjoy travel. So I have to not necessarily go to the point of being extreme and punishing myself, but I need to make sure that I don't go over what is budget. Number two, having too little in your emergency fund. Now, one of the things that I know over the years, I used to be, I mentioned the cars earlier, that I did get some better cars after I learned how to use money. But I have learned over the last 20 years to keep my car longer. Now, keeping that car longer, which means that basically end up that having car repairs. I rather pay the repair costs than have another car note, but that's just me. Think about it. During the pandemic, there was a lot of job termination and job loss. Matter of fact, I just saw where Microsoft is laying people off, which we thought, tech fields will always be sustainable for the next foreseeable future. And I just saw another major company, Disney. They're laying off 7,000 people coming up soon. So the financial advisor recommend that you have at least 6 months of your income in the emergency fund. I think that's very, very ambitious, but it's doable if you have a plan. So let's be ambitious and let's do it. Medical bills, that's something that you can't plan for. I mean, heavens forbid that you're in a automobile accident or anything to that extent. Those things will actually kind of just pick at your budget until you get things rectified. Overpaying in housing. One of the things that I call it income creep. You get on, you start your career, and after 3 years, you start getting promoted. Now you think that you can get a bigger house. Now, when you get the bigger house, sometimes that stretch. Remember that that 40%. You don't want to increase that 40% of the needed budget on housing, and that also with paying rent. Do you really need that extra bedroom? If you got two, do you really need three? Those are things that you need to take in consideration. Now, this might be controversial to a lot of you guys. You putting your children's college fund ahead of your retirement. Now, I did that, but I'm telling you, one of the things I learned is they basically, hey, there's financial aids, there's loans. They can actually get a part-time job. There's some other things you need to do, because whether they finish school or not, you will retire one day. If you keep living and you keep working, you will have to retire. Well, have the option of doing things that you like after you get a certain age. I wouldn't say that you retire, but it should be a choice. It should be your option whether you continue to work or not a necessity. Paying too much to the market fluctuation. Any time that you have a war or rumors of war, you're going to have market fluctuation. I have my own personal opinion of those things or why things happen, but I spare you that. That's why when you put your money in a 401k or a mutual fund or in the stock, those are long-term investments. What I will do, and I'll probably talk about this next week about the 401k in a little more details and some of the things that I personally feel about 401k. But last is that when you do set up a long-term retirement plan, if you take money out of it prior to it maturation, there's taxes and penalties. That's all the time I have right now, my soul brothers and soul sisters. I thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, be blessed.